In the sun-scorched borderlands of Arizona, a deadly miscalculation is about to unfold. When Mexico's most brutal cartel kidnaps a pregnant widow from her remote desert home, they believe they're dealing with just another helpless victim. They couldn't be more wrong. For 15 years, she was the FBI's most successful undercover operative in cartel investigations, and they just took the one thing she has left to live for. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches, you make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The October heat shimmers across the Sonoran Desert as Sarah Mitchell checks the security cameras around her property for the third time today. At 7 months pregnant, her movements are slower than she'd like, but her mind remains razor-sharp. The former FBI agent's isolated ranch house sits 20 miles outside of Tucson, carefully chosen for its tactical advantages. Clear sightlines in all directions, multiple escape routes, and enough distance from civilization to spot trouble. And coming. The property's seemingly random landscaping actually forms a carefully planned defensive perimeter. Native cacti and rock formations provide natural cover while channeling any approaching vehicles along predictable paths. The tall saguaros that dot her land aren't just for show. Each one houses sophisticated motion sensors and cameras, their power cables buried deep beneath the desert soil. Through her surveillance monitors, Sarah watches a dust cloud approach. From the south, another cartel convoy, bigger than yesterday's. They've been getting bolder since James died, thinking his widow would be an easy target. If they only knew how many of their operations she dismantled during her years undercover. How many of their leaders now sat in maximum security cells because of intelligence she'd gathered. The thought brings a bitter smile to her face as she remembers past operations, deep cover assignments that had helped dismantle entire trafficking networks. Her hand instinctively moves to her belly as the baby kicks. "It's okay, little one," she whispers. "Mama's got this." The wedding ring on her finger catches the morning light. 3 months since the accident that took James. Local police called it a tragic collision, but Sarah recognized cartel tactics when she saw them. Her husband, a dedicated DEA agent, had been getting too close to exposing their new smuggling routes. The accident had all the hallmarks of a professional hit: brake lines cut with surgical precision, impact angles that guaranteed maximum damage, first responders delayed by mysterious road construction. The security system chirps, drawing her attention to the western camera. 2 more vehicles approaching, expensive SUVs with tinted windows. They're coordinating, trying to flank her property. Amateur move. She'd used the same technique herself. While building cases against cartel operations across 3 continents, Sarah had written the FBI's current manual on cartel infiltration tactics, though her name wasn't on it. Too many operations still classified, too many enemies still hunting for the mysterious agent who'd caused them so much damage. Her satellite phone buzzes, a text from her old handler at the bureau. Chatter's picked up. Sinaloa's making a move. Get out now. But Sarah knows running isn't an option anymore. At 7 months pregnant, she can't risk a high-speed pursuit across the desert. Besides, she didn't spend 15 years becoming the FBI's most effective cartel infiltrator by running from fights. Those years had taught her patience, how to turn apparent vulnerability into an advantage. The ranch house appears ordinary, but like its owner, its harmless exterior hides lethal capabilities. Every window is bulletproof, every door reinforced. The panic room could withstand a direct mortar hit. The innocent-looking garden shed contains enough surveillance equipment to run a small intelligence operation. James had called her paranoid when she insisted on these modifications. Now she wishes she'd done more. In the kitchen, a hidden panel slides back to reveal a comprehensive medical suite. She'd learned early in her career never to rely on outside help during operations. The basement holds enough supplies to survive a month-long siege, including specialized equipment for delivering a baby if necessary. Sarah had planned for every contingency except one: losing James before their child was born. Sarah moves to her office, using retinal scan to access a hidden compartment behind her desk. Inside sits her go-bag, tactical gear, encrypted communications equipment, and documentation of every cartel operation she'd ever investigated. But more importantly, it contains proof of who really ordered the hit on James, evidence that would tear the Sinaloa cartel's leadership apart from within. She'd spent the last 3 months building this case, using old contacts and surveillance techniques to piece together the truth. A desert hawk circles overhead as the vehicles draw closer. Sarah allows herself a grim smile, remembering her academy instructor's favorite phrase: "The most dangerous opponent is the one with nothing left to lose." The cartel thinks they're about to eliminate a loose end, tie up the unfinished business of James's murder. Instead, they're about to learn why she was codenamed Serpent during her undercover days. Quiet, patient, and lethal when cornered. Through her earpiece, she hears the encrypted radio chatter of the approaching cartel soldiers. Their Spanish is casual, relaxed. They're discussing how easy this will be, just another intimidation job. Sarah switches frequencies, activating the satellite uplink to a very special server, one containing files that would automatically release to every law enforcement agency in the Americas if she doesn't enter a code every 24 hours. The cartel's about to discover that taking her isn't the end of their problems. It's just the beginning. The baby kicks again as Sarah checks her weapons one final time. "Your daddy was a hero, little one," she whispers, "and he died trying to protect people from these monsters. Now it's our turn." She moves into position, her FBI training taking over as muscle memory. Years of undercover work had taught her to see every angle, anticipate every move. The cartel is about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating pregnant widows, especially ones who spent their careers learning every detail of how to destroy criminal empires from the inside out. The cartel convoy splits into 3 groups, exactly as Sarah predicted. Through her surveillance system, she watches their tactical formation with professional interest. Their approach is textbook cartel intimidation. She should know, she literally wrote the FBI's analysis on their standard operating procedures during her time with the Counter-Criminal Organizations Unit. Memories flash through her mind as she observes their movements. 8 years ago, she'd orchestrated an identical approach while undercover with the Sinaloa cartel, earning their trust by planning security operations. That mission had ended with 3 top lieutenants in custody, and Sarah receiving her 5th commendation. Not that anyone outside the Bureau knew. Her successes remained as anonymous as her methods. The lead vehicle stops at her gate, and Sarah's breath catches as she recognizes the man stepping out. Miguel El Coyote Ramirez, the cartel's chief enforcer. She'd worked alongside him for 14 months during Operation Desert Viper, gathering evidence that had nearly brought down their entire North American operation. Only her emergency extraction had prevented them from discovering her true identity. Now, watching him approach her door through 4 different camera angles, Sarah realizes this is no random intimidation attempt. "They know," she whispers, one hand resting protectively on her belly, or at least they suspect. The baby kicks again, as if sensing her tension. Sarah moves to her command center, hidden behind a false wall in her office. The monitors show 11 men total, all heavily armed, despite their attempts to conceal weapons under expensive suits. Their equipment is military-grade. Someone's been upgrading the cartel's arsenal since her last intelligence assessment. If this story has captured your attention, make sure to subscribe. What happens next will shock you. Her mind races through scenarios as she activates additional security measures. The ranch's defensive capabilities were designed for exactly this situation, but she'd planned to have James by her side when the moment came. Her late husband had helped install many of these systems, his DEA experience complementing her FBI training. Together, they'd created a fortress disguised as a simple ranch house. "Senora Mitchell!" Ramirez's voice carries across her front yard, smooth and professional. "We represent some business interests that would like to discuss your property." Sarah allows herself a grim smile. She remembers teaching him this exact approach during her undercover days. Appear legitimate, maintain a professional facade, give the target a chance to cooperate before escalating. Through her cameras, she watches two men circle toward her back door, while another pair moves to cover her garage. Their movements are precise, coordinated. These aren't ordinary cartel soldiers. These are former military, probably Mexican special forces. The kind of men she used to help identify and arrest during joint task force operations. Sarah's satellite phone vibrates again. This time it's not her handler, but a different number, one she hasn't seen in 3 years. "They found your files." The message reads, "Basement vault in Mexico City, time to disappear." The source is an old contact, one of many deep cover assets she'd cultivated during her career. If they're breaking silence protocols, the situation is worse than she imagined. The pieces click into place. James's accident, the escalating pressure on her property, and now El Coyote himself leading the operation. They're not here to intimidate or eliminate a witness. They're here to capture the legendary La Serpiente, the mysterious FBI operative who'd infiltrated their organization multiple times under different identities. An operative whose pregnancy now makes her vulnerable for the first time in her career. "Last chance, senora!" Ramirez calls out. "My employers are prepared to be very generous. This land has strategic value." Sarah checks her weapons one final time, muscle memory from thousands of hours of training taking over. Her fingers brush against the hidden compartment containing her old credentials, citations for operations even her own. Agency had deemed impossible. The baby kicks again, stronger this time. Sarah takes a deep breath, centering herself the way she'd done before countless high-risk operations. "Your timing's perfect, little one," she whispers. "Mama needed a reminder of what we're fighting for." She'd spent 15 years protecting families from the cartel's poison. Now, with her own family threatened, those skills would serve a more personal mission. Her security system highlights multiple laser sights sweeping her windows. They're preparing for a breach. Amateur move. They still think they're dealing with a grieving widow, not the agent who'd trained half their security teams in counter-surveillance techniques during her undercover work. Every tactic they're using, she helped develop. Every approach they're taking, she'd anticipated. Sarah activates her countermeasures, systems she'd prepared for exactly this scenario. Across her property, carefully hidden speakers begin broadcasting. Cartel radio chatter, creating the impression of a larger force surrounding the area. A tactic she'd first employed in Bogota, using the cartel's paranoia against them. Through her cameras, she watches their formation shift, uncertainty creeping into their movements. "Time to remind them why they called me Serpent," Sarah murmurs, setting her plan in motion. The cartel thought pregnancy had made her vulnerable. Instead, it had given her something more dangerous than any weapon, an absolute, unshakable reason to win. They were about to learn that a mother protecting her child is more dangerous than any operative they'd faced before. Preparing and narrating. This story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. El Coyote's patience runs out exactly as Sarah predicts. She watches through her surveillance system as he signals his men to take more aggressive positions. Their formation is perfect, too perfect. In her earpiece, she catches fragments of encrypted communications that confirm her worst fears. These aren't just cartel soldiers. They're an elite extraction team specifically assembled to capture high-value targets. Check your corners, a voice crackles in sophisticated military code. Subject has extensive tactical training. Assume everything is rigged. Sarah allows herself a thin smile. They've done their homework, but not well enough. They know they're hunting a former FBI agent, but they don't realize they're dealing with the Bureau's most successful deep cover operative. The baby kicks again as she monitors their deployment. 3 men approach her front door, while others establish coverage zones with professional precision. Their weapons are state-of-the-art, modified M4 carbines with thermal optics, the latest Belgian-made tactical gear, equipment that shouldn't be available to cartels. Someone with serious political connections is backing this operation. Subscribe. Now to see how this former FBI agent turns the tables on her attackers. Senora Mitchell, El Coyote calls out again, his tone harder now. We know who you are. Serpent. Or should I say, Agent Rebecca Torres, or perhaps Maria Delgado. How many names have you used while destroying our organization? The use of her old undercover identities sends a chill down Sarah's spine. They haven't just found her files, they've broken the Bureau's deepest encryption protocols. Through her cameras, she watches 2 men setting up what appears to be standard breaching equipment by her garage, but their gear is too bulky for simple entry tools. Thermal imaging reveals the truth. They're installing signal jammers, trying to cut off her communications. Another team is deploying what looks like medical equipment. They want her alive. Your husband didn't have to die, El Coyote continues, pressing psychological pressure points with expert precision. He was collateral damage in a war you started. Cooperate now, and your child might have a chance to live. The words are calculated to provoke an emotional response, to make her act rashly. 5 years ago, she'd taught their interrogators these exact techniques. Sarah's mind races through implications as she monitors their deployment. The cartel shouldn't have access to this level of intelligence or equipment. Someone high up in law enforcement or government must be feeding them information. The same someone who'd made sure local police wrote off James's death as an accident. Her satellite phone buzzes again, another message from her deep cover contact. FBI security breach confirmed. Safe houses compromised. Trust no one. The message validates her suspicions. This isn't just a cartel operation. It's a coordinated effort to eliminate everyone who knows about Operation Desert Viper, the multi-year investigation that nearly exposed links between cartel leadership and prominent political figures. Sarah activates her counter-surveillance protocols systems she'd designed based on years of studying cartel tactics. Hidden speakers begin broadcasting contradictory radio chatter, creating the impression of multiple law enforcement units converging on the area. Through her cameras, she sees several cartel soldiers react nervously, their training warring with ingrained paranoia. You're surrounded by motion sensors and automated defenses, she broadcasts through her external speakers, her voice calm and professional. That equipment you're setting up? I helped design it. Those tactics you're using, I wrote the manual. Last chance to withdraw. The warning is part of her strategy. Let them think they know what they're facing, while her real countermeasures remain hidden. El Coyote's response is immediate and unexpected. He pulls out a tablet, holding it up so her cameras can see the screen. On it, live footage shows a familiar face, her younger sister Emily, teaching at her elementary school in Phoenix. We can reach anyone, anywhere, he says coldly. Your FBI protection protocols, we have them all. Withdraw your deadman switches, deactivate your security systems, or your family starts dying. The implied threat freezes Sarah for a moment. She'd helped establish those protection protocols, believed they were unbreakable. For the cartel to penetrate them this deeply suggests corruption at the highest levels. Her hand moves to her belly. Again, feeling her child move. They're not just after her anymore. They're targeting everyone she's ever cared about. A new voice crackles over their tactical frequency, one that makes her blood run cold. Team 2 in position. Subject's sister's classroom secured. Team 3 has visual on the parents in Miami. She recognizes the speaker, Assistant Director Wilson, her former supervisor at the FBI. The corruption goes higher than she'd imagined. Sarah checks her weapons again, mind shifting into the cold tactical space that had kept her alive during countless undercover operations. They think they've trapped her, forced her into a corner. Instead, they've given her something more dangerous than any weapon: absolute certainty. With her family threatened, there's no need to hold back, no reason to maintain operational deniability. Through her surveillance feeds, she watches El Coyote's men prepare for their breach. They're professional, methodical, absolutely confident in their superior numbers and intelligence. They don't realize that everything, their approach, their equipment, their psychological tactics, was based on training she'd helped develop. Now those same techniques would become their undoing. "Time to show them why they called me Serpent," Sarah whispers, initiating her countermeasures. The cartel thought they were forcing her hand. Instead, they'd just freed her to unleash everything she'd learned in 15 years of dismantling criminal empires. They were about to learn why threatening a former FBI agent's family was the last mistake they'd ever make. Sarah's fingers fly across her command center's keyboard, initiating emergency protocols she'd hoped never to use. The cartel's threat against her family has changed everything. Through her surveillance feeds, she watches El Coyote's men adjust their positions, still unaware that their tactical advantage is about to evaporate. Years of undercover work had taught her to prepare for every contingency, including betrayal from within her own agency. "Deadman's switch deactivated," she broadcast to El Coyote, her voice steady despite the fury building inside her. "I'm complying. Don't harm my family." The words taste bitter, but they're part of a deeper strategy. In her earpiece, she hears Assistant Director Wilson directing the operation, every word confirming the depths of his corruption. His presence explains how the cartel had breached the FBI's most secure protocols. The baby kicks again as Sarah activates a hidden communications array, one not even James had known about. During her years undercover, she'd built a network of trusted contacts outside official channels, former assets, retired agents, and others who'd helped her survive deep cover operations. Now, that network would serve a different purpose. Her first message goes to Maya Chen, a former CIA technical specialist who'd gone private sector after discovering similar corruption in her agency. Family threatened, Wilson compromised, initiate protocol echo. The response comes seconds later, confirmed, counter-surveillance active on all targets, extraction teams standing by. Through her monitors, Sarah watches El Coyote's men begin their approach. Their formation is perfect, exactly as she'd taught them years ago while undercover. They move with the confidence of professionals who believe they have every advantage: numbers, intelligence, and the element of surprise. That confidence is their first mistake. "Team 1, breach on my mark." Wilson's voice crackles over their tactical frequency. "Remember, we need her alive. The child is a secondary priority." The casual cruelty in his words confirms what Sarah had suspected. This isn't just about capturing her. They want to use her pregnancy as leverage, ensure her cooperation for something bigger. Sarah's second message goes to Marcus Rodriguez, a former DEA agent who'd worked with James. "Wilson's compromised. Need everything you have on Operation Desert Viper. Sending authentication now." Marcus had been investigating the same corruption that got James killed. His response is immediate. Data confirms cartel infiltration at highest levels, sending proof of Wilson's offshore accounts. The information flowing across her screens paints a devastating picture. Wilson hadn't just betrayed the FBI, he'd been working with the cartels for years, using his position to protect their operations while eliminating threats like James. The realization brings a cold clarity to Sarah's thoughts. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about exposing a conspiracy that reaches into the highest levels of law enforcement. Approaching breach points, a cartel soldier reports. Through her cameras, Sarah watches them place shaped charges on her doors and windows. Their technique is flawless, but they're operating on outdated intelligence. The blueprints they're working from, provided by Wilson, don't show the modifications she'd made after James's death. A third message goes out to Diana Torres, her former handler before Wilson, sending proof of Wilson's corruption, need immediate intervention. Diana had been pushed into early retirement after questioning some of Wilson's operations. Her response carries the weight of years of suspicion. Countermeasures authorized, task force mobilizing, hold position. Sarah's hand moves to her tactical belt, checking equipment she'd hoped never to use again. The weight of her specialized gear is familiar, grounding. Inside her, the baby moves again, as if sensing the approaching conflict. "Stay calm, little one," she whispers. "Mama's got a plan." Through her surveillance system, she watches El Coyote check his phone, reading a message that makes him frown. Her network is already causing confusion, spreading disinformation through cartel channels about rival groups. Moving into the area, it's a technique she'd perfected during her undercover days, using their paranoia against them. "Something's wrong," El Coyote mutters in Spanish. Local police bands showing multiple units approaching. The police chatter is fake, of course, generated by Maya's sophisticated communications array, but the seed of doubt is planted, making them question their intelligence. Wilson's voice cuts through their tactical frequency, sharp with irritation. "Ignore local law enforcement chatter. We have full control of the situation." His confidence would have been reassuring to his men, if Sarah hadn't already begun dismantling his control, piece by piece. Another message from Maya confirms that Sarah's family members are now under surveillance, not by the cartel, but by trusted operatives ready to intervene. The cartel's leverage is evaporating, though they don't know it yet. Years of building, contingency plans and backup networks are about to pay off. Breaching charges set, the tactical team leader reports. "Ready on your command." Through her cameras, Sarah watches them take final positions. Everything they're doing is based on protocols she helped develop, weaknesses she's long since eliminated from her defenses. "You know what they say about serpents," Sarah whispers, initiating the final phase of her countermeasures. They're most dangerous when cornered. The cartel is about to learn why her undercover work had been so devastating to their operations. She hadn't just gathered intelligence during those years, she'd learned every weakness, every flaw in their tactics. The baby kicks again, strong and steady. Sarah allows herself a grim smile. They thought her pregnancy made her vulnerable. Instead, it had given her an unshakable resolve. With her family threatened and her agency compromised, there's no need to hold back. The cartel is about to learn the difference between hunting a target and cornering a mother, protecting not just her child but everyone she loves. "Breach in 30 seconds, the tactical leader announces. Sarah makes her final preparations, years of training and experience crystallizing into perfect clarity. They think they're about to capture the legendary serpent. Instead, they're about to discover why that name had struck fear into cartel leadership for over a decade. Through her monitors, she watches El Coyote raise his hand, preparing to give the breach signal. In her earpiece, Wilson continues directing the operation, unaware that his own corrupt network is being dismantled in real time. The stage is set for a confrontation that will expose not just cartel operations, but corruption at the highest levels of law enforcement. The baby moves again, as if lending strength to its mother. Sarah's hand moves to her tactical controls, ready to demonstrate why threatening her family was the last mistake this organization would ever make. The cartel thought they were dealing with a vulnerable target. They're about to learn they've walked into a trap 15 years in the making. Sarah's command center hums with quiet efficiency as she watches the cartel teams unravel. Their precise military formation deteriorates as confusion sets in, each empty room and false lead eating away at their confidence. Through her surveillance feeds, she observes El Coyote barking increasingly desperate orders, his professional demeanor cracking under pressure. "Sir, we've got a problem," one of the team leaders reports to Wilson. "Our comms are getting interference. GPS is showing multiple locations for the same coordinates." It's another of Sarah's carefully planned countermeasures, designed to create uncertainty and disorientation without revealing her true capabilities. The baby shifts as Sarah accesses her deeper security protocols. During her years undercover, she'd learned that the most effective weapon against cartel operations isn't force, it's information. Her fingers move across specialized keyboards, accessing systems that would make her former FBI colleagues envious. "All teams maintain position," Wilson commands, but his voice carries an edge of uncertainty. "She's trying to divide our attention. Stay focused." Through her monitors, Sarah watches his tactical teams bunch together, abandoning their careful spacing. Fear makes them seek safety in numbers, exactly as she'd planned. El Coyote's phone buzzes again. Sarah watches his face pale as he reads the message, another piece of her disinformation campaign. "Sir," he reports to Wilson, "we're getting reports of federal task force movements in the area. Multiple agencies. The information is false, of course, but planted through channels the cartel has learned to trust." Sarah's next message goes to Marcus. "Initiate financial protocols." Within minutes, carefully prepared algorithms begin attacking the cartel's digital infrastructure. Bank accounts freeze, transfer authorizations fail, and emergency funds become mysteriously inaccessible. It's a technique she developed during her last deep cover operation. Hit them in their finances while they're distracted by physical threats. The baby kicks strongly, and Sarah allows herself a moment of fierce pride. "That's right, little one. Mama's showing them why you never corner someone who knows all your secrets." Her years building cases against the cartels had given her intimate knowledge of their operations, weaknesses, and fears. Through her surveillance system, she watches the tactical teams sweep her house for the third time. Their movements are increasingly erratic, professionalism warring with growing fear. Every shadow could hide a threat, every empty room could conceal a trap. The psychological pressure builds exactly as she designed it to. "Wilson," El Coyote's voice carries poorly hidden panic. "We've got multiple vehicles approaching from the north. Thermal signatures match federal tactical units." Another of Sarah's deceptions. Sophisticated drones projecting false heat signatures, a technology she'd acquired through her network of former intelligence contacts. The assistant director's response is sharp with frustration. "Impossible! We have control of all federal responses in the region." His outburst confirms what Sarah suspected. Wilson's corruption extends through multiple agencies, but not as completely as he believes. Sarah's next series of messages activates sleeper protocols she'd embedded in cartel communications networks during her undercover years. Suddenly, their encrypted channels fill with conflicting orders, apparent betrayals, and hints of internal power struggles. Seeds of doubt she'd planted years ago begin to bloom. Teams 3 and 4 reporting movement on the East Ridge, a tactical leader announces. Multiple heat signatures. Through her cameras, Sarah watches them react to phantoms. sophisticated holograms projected by systems she'd installed in the surrounding desert. Every false contact forces them to split their attention further, degrading their tactical cohesion. The baby moves again as Sarah prepares her next phase. Her hand rests briefly on her belly, drawing strength from the life she's protecting. The cartel thought her pregnancy made her vulnerable. Instead, it had forced her to develop more subtle, more devastating methods of defense. All units fall back to defensive positions, El Coyote orders, his voice tight with stress. Something's not right. This isn't a standard FBI safe house. His instincts are good, but too late. The trap isn't in the house's defenses. It's in everything they think they know about their target. Wilson's frustration bleeds through the tactical frequency. Maintain your positions. She's one woman, probably hiding in a panic room. This is basic containment, but his words lack conviction. Too many unexplained events, too many systems failing simultaneously. The certainty that led them to target a pregnant widow evaporates in the face of carefully orchestrated chaos. Sarah's monitors show her civilian network activating. Across 3 states, seemingly unrelated events begin disrupting cartel operations. Police respond to anonymous tips, finding weapons caches and drug shipments. Bank officers discover irregularities in laundered accounts. Trusted lieutenants receive evidence suggesting betrayal by their colleagues. "Sir," El Coyote's voice carries genuine fear now, "we're getting reports of arrests at our main distribution centers. Someone's coordinating a multi-state operation." Sarah allows herself a grim smile. During her years undercover, she'd built an extensive network of law enforcement contacts who owed her favors, all of them outside Wilson's corrupt influence. The baby kicks again as Sarah watches her plans unfold. Each piece moves precisely as designed, creating a cascade of confusion and paranoia that no amount of tactical training can counter. The cartel is about to learn why she'd been so effective at destroying their operations from within. She doesn't just understand their methods, she knows their deepest fears. "Wilson?" El Coyote's professional demeanor finally cracks completely. "We need to abort. Something's happening to our entire northern network." Through her cameras, Sarah watches the tactical teams begin to withdraw, their training unable to counter threats they can't identify or engage. The morning sun crests the desert horizon as Sarah prepares her final movements. The cartel came, expecting to find a vulnerable target. Instead, they'd walked into an operation 15 years in the making, orchestrated by someone who'd spent her career learning exactly how to tear their organization apart from the inside. Wilson's voice crackles through the tactical frequency, desperation finally overtaking his professional demeanor. "All teams, execute primary target capture. Forget protocols. Take her now." His command betrays growing panic as reports of disrupted cartel operations flood their communications channels. Through her surveillance system, Sarah watches the tactical teams abandon their careful strategy, rushing toward her presumed location with dangerous urgency. The baby shifts restlessly as Sarah initiates her active countermeasures. Years of investigating cartel operations had taught her that the most dangerous moment comes when your opponent realizes they're losing control. Her fingers move across. Specialized controls, activating systems designed for exactly this scenario. "Multiple breaches detected," El Coyote reports, his voice tight with tension. "No contact with target. She's ghosting us." The frustration in his tone brings back memories of similar operations, times when Sarah had dismantled cartel networks from within, leaving their leadership paranoid and disorganized. Suddenly, her ranch house's defensive systems activate in sequence. Hidden speakers broadcast tactical chatter from multiple directions, creating the illusion of a large force converging on their position. Specialized lights strobe at disorienting frequencies, disrupting night vision equipment and thermal imaging. The professional strike force begins to fragment, their coordination dissolving under sensory assault. "Sir, we're losing tactical cohesion." A team leader reports to Wilson. Teams 3 and 4 are reporting federal tactical units on the ridgeline. Sarah watches through her cameras as the cartel forces react to phantom threats, sophisticated holograms and heat signatures projected by systems she'd installed throughout her property. The baby kicks strongly, and Sarah places a reassuring hand on her belly. "Almost done, little one. Mama's showing them why you don't threaten a serpent's nest." Her years building cases against cartels had given her intimate knowledge of how they respond to pressure. Now that knowledge becomes a weapon. El Coyote's phone buzzes continuously as Sarah's disinformation campaign reaches its peak. False reports of seized shipments, arrested lieutenants, and compromised safe houses flood cartel communications networks. Each message increases their paranoia, making them question everything they thought they knew about this operation. "Wilson, we need to pull out." El Coyote's professional facade finally shatters. "Something's wrong. This isn't just a safe house, it's a trap." Through her monitors, Sarah watches the tactical teams begin breaking formation, their training unable to counter threats they can't identify or engage. The morning sun intensifies as Sarah prepares her final move. During her undercover years, she'd learned that the most effective way to destroy a cartel operation isn't through direct confrontation. It's by making them destroy themselves. Her fingers dance across specialized keyboards, activating the last phase of her defense. "All teams, maintain position." Wilson's command carries the edge of desperation. "She's one person. She can't—" His voice cuts off as Sarah's deepest countermeasures activate. Suddenly, their secure communications fill with damning evidence. Recordings of Wilson's meetings with cartel leadership, documentation of bribes, proof of his role in James's murder. The tactical teams freeze as their own communications betray them. Sarah watches through multiple camera feeds as confusion turns to understanding, and understanding turns to fury. These men had sworn oaths to their organization, only to learn they'd been serving a corrupt FBI official who'd betrayed his own agency. "Target Wilson!" El Coyote's command crackles through their tactical frequency. "He sold us out!" The professional strike force turns on itself as years of carefully planted evidence surfaces simultaneously. Sarah's cameras capture the moment. Wilson realizes his own operation has become his undoing. The baby moves again as Sarah sends her final messages. Across 3 states, law enforcement agencies receive carefully prepared evidence packages detailing Wilson's corruption and the cartel's operations. The network she'd built during 15 years of undercover work activates fully, turning a single ranch house in the desert into the center of a multi-state takedown operation. "All units converging on your location." A new voice breaks through their tactical frequency. Diana Torres, Sarah's former handler, now leading an FBI anti-corruption task force. "Wilson, your security clearance is revoked. All teams, stand down or be treated as hostile." Through her surveillance system, Sarah watches the cartel force fragment completely. Some teams surrender immediately, others flee into the desert, while a few stand with Wilson as he tries desperately to regain control. El Coyote disappears amid the chaos, but Sarah knows his organization is finished. Her evidence will tear apart their entire northern operation. The morning heat begins to build as Sarah finally moves from her hidden command center. The baby kicks again, stronger now, as if sensing the danger has passed. She allows herself a moment to reflect on how differently this confrontation had played out from what her attackers expected. They'd come for a vulnerable widow and found instead a serpent's nest of devastating countermeasures. "Target secured," Diana's voice reports through Sarah's secure channel. "Wilson is in custody. Cartel elements are surrounded. You can come out now. Area is contained." Through her cameras, Sarah watches FBI tactical teams secure her property, their movements precise and professional. Unlike Wilson's corrupt force, these are agents she'd worked with before, people whose loyalty had been tested and proven. The desert wind carries the sound of approaching helicopters as Sarah emerges from her command center. Her hand rests protectively on her belly as she surveys the aftermath of her defense. The cartel had thought her pregnancy made her vulnerable. Instead, it had forced her to develop methods more devastating than direct confrontation. They'd never understand that they'd lost this battle long before they breached her door. In the years she'd spent learning their weaknesses, planting evidence, and preparing for exactly this moment. Diana's tactical teams secure the perimeter. As Sarah observes through her remaining surveillance systems, the morning sun illuminates the aftermath of what should have been a simple capture operation, now transformed into one of the largest cartel takedowns in Arizona history. Emergency. Vehicles approach from multiple directions, their lights reflecting off the desert landscape. "Clear the house room by room," Diana orders through the tactical frequency. "Document everything. This is now our primary crime scene for the Wilson corruption case." Sarah watches the FBI teams move through her home with professional precision. So different from the chaos of the cartel force just minutes earlier. The baby shifts as Sarah accesses her secure databases, beginning the process of compiling evidence. Her years undercover hadn't just taught her how to infiltrate cartel operations, they'd shown her the importance of documentation. Every transaction, every meeting, every corrupt decision Wilson had made was recorded and categorized. "Sarah," Diana approaches, her tactical gear marking her as the operation commander. "We've got Wilson and his primary team in custody, but El Coyote slipped away during the confusion." She pauses, studying her former agent's calm demeanor. "Though something tells me you planned for that." Sarah allows herself a small smile as she activates her tracking protocols. During her years working undercover, she'd learned that sometimes the most valuable targets are the ones you let escape. Her surveillance systems show El Coyote's vehicle heading south, exactly as predicted. "He'll lead us to their backup command. Center," she explains, "the one Wilson helped them set up using FBI resources." Through her monitors, Sarah watches multiple operations unfold simultaneously. Her network of former assets and trusted contacts executes preset protocols, each designed to exploit the chaos of Wilson's arrest. Bank accounts freeze, safe houses are exposed, and carefully planted evidence surfaces in exactly the right places. "My God," Diana breathes, watching the data flow across Sarah's screens. "You've been planning this since James died, haven't you? This wasn't just about protecting yourself. You used their attack to expose the entire corruption network." Her voice carries both admiration and concern. How deep does this go? The baby kicks as Sarah brings up another set of files, evidence she'd gathered during her last undercover operation before discovering her pregnancy. "Wilson wasn't working alone," she explains, showing Diana documentation of meetings, transfers, and coded communications. He was part of a larger conspiracy. The cartel wasn't just buying protection, they were being helped to eliminate their competition. FBI evidence teams moved methodically through her property, documenting the sophisticated defense systems that had turned a simple ranch house into a major tactical operations center. Sarah notes their professional appreciation of her preparations, so different from the cartel team's overconfident assault. "Sarah," Diana's voice softens slightly, "you know we'll need to move you. Once this evidence goes public, you'll be a primary target for what's left of their organization." She glances at Sarah's pregnant belly. "We can have you in witness protection within the hour." But Sarah is already shaking her head, bringing up another set of monitors. "That won't be necessary," she responds, showing Diana live feeds from multiple locations across 3 states. While Wilson's team was focused here, my network was dismantling their entire regional operation. By sunset, the cartel won't have any infrastructure left in the southwest. Through her surveillance systems, Sarah tracks El Coyote's vehicle as it approaches what he believes is a secure fallback position. Instead, he's driving straight into another trap, one set by Sarah's deep cover contacts within Mexican law enforcement. The cartel's attempt to capture her would end up exposing not just Wilson's corruption, but their entire North American command structure. "You need to see this," one of Diana's technical specialists calls out, examining Sarah's command center. She wasn't just gathering evidence. She was using their own communication systems to map their entire organization. Every time they accessed her surveillance feeds, she was accessing their networks. The baby moves again as Sarah begins transferring encrypted files to Diana's secure server. Years of undercover work had taught her to look beyond immediate tactical situations to larger strategic goals. The cartel thought they were hunting a vulnerable former agent. Instead, they'd triggered an operation designed to dismantle their entire organization. "One more thing," Sarah adds, bringing up a final set of documents. "This is everything I have on James's murder, proof that Wilson ordered it, using cartel assets to make it look like an accident. I want his assassination team found and prosecuted." Her voice remains professional, but Diana hears the steel. Beneath it, through her remaining cameras, Sarah watches FBI teams discover more of her hidden security measures. Each revelation adds to their understanding of just how thoroughly she'd prepared for this confrontation. The cartel had expected to find a pregnant widow hiding in a panic room. Instead, they'd walked into a trap, 15 years in the making. "Ma'am," another agent approaches Diana, his expression troubled. "We're getting reports of similar operations being executed across the region. Safe houses compromised, banking networks frozen, transportation routes exposed. It's like someone flipped a switch and activated every sleeper agent and confidential informant we have." Sarah allows herself another small smile as she monitors the cascading effects of her countermeasures. During her years undercover, she'd learned that the most effective way to destroy a criminal empire isn't through direct confrontation. It's by turning their own infrastructure against them. The cartel's attempt to capture her would become the catalyst for their own destruction. The morning heat intensifies as Sarah monitors El Coyote's progress through her tracking systems. The cartel enforcer believes he's escaping to a secure location, unaware that every mile takes him closer to a carefully prepared trap. Through her command center's displays, she watches multiple operations unfold simultaneously across the southwest. "Ma'am," one of Diana's agents reports urgently, "we've got movement at all major cartel distribution centers. They're trying to evacuate assets and personnel." The agent's tone carries professional concern, but Sarah notes the underlying amazement at the scope of what's unfolding. The baby kicks as Sarah brings up another set of monitors, showing real-time surveillance of cartel facilities across 3 states. Her years undercover hadn't just been about gathering evidence. She'd mapped their entire infrastructure, identifying every weakness and vulnerability. Now those weaknesses become entry points for law enforcement. "Let them run," Sarah instructs, her voice calm despite the intensity of the situation. Every escape route they know about is already compromised. Through her screens, she watches cartel operators abandon safe houses and storage facilities, unknowingly following evacuation protocols she'd helped design during her undercover work. Diana leans over Sarah's shoulder, watching the operation expand beyond anything she'd anticipated. "This isn't just a defensive response," she realizes. "You're using their attack as cover for a complete dismantling operation. How long have you been planning this?" Sarah's fingers move across specialized keyboards, coordinating with her network of trusted contacts. "Since I discovered I was "You're pregnant," she explains, bringing up documentation of Wilson's corruption. "I knew they'd eventually find me. The question was how to make their attack serve a larger purpose." Through her surveillance feeds, she watches El Coyote's vehicle approach the Mexican border. He's following emergency protocols established by Wilson, unaware that every checkpoint and crossing point is now under surveillance by trusted elements of Mexican law enforcement. Officers who owe their careers to information Sarah had provided. During her undercover years, multiple targets approaching border crossings, an agent reports. Mexican authorities are in position. Sarah allows herself a moment of satisfaction. The cartel's attempt to capture her had triggered exactly the response she'd spent months preparing. A coordinated multinational operation that would tear apart their entire regional infrastructure. The baby moves again as Sarah activates her deepest countermeasures. Years of building cases against cartels had taught her that timing is everything. Each piece of evidence needs to surface at precisely the right moment, creating a cascade of revelations that makes containment impossible. "Diana," Sarah calls, bringing up another set of files. "I need these delivered to every U.S. attorney's office in the Southwest. It's everything we need to prove Wilson wasn't acting alone. Documentation of other corrupt officials, banking records, meeting transcripts." Her voice remains professional, but there's an edge of satisfaction as years of careful preparation come to fruition. Through her monitors, Sarah tracks multiple cartel teams attempting to salvage what they can of their operation. Each movement follows patterns she'd studied and documented during her undercover work. Now those same patterns become a trap, leading them straight into waiting law enforcement teams. "Sarah!" Diana's voice carries concern as she watches the operation unfold. Once this goes public, there's no going back. The cartel's entire power structure will collapse. They'll come after you with everything they have left. She glances meaningfully at Sarah's pregnant belly, but Sarah is already shaking her head, bringing up another set of displays. By the time they realize what's happening, there won't be anything left to come after me with. Through her cameras, she watches more FBI teams arrive, securing evidence that will dismantle not just Wilson's corruption network, but the entire cartel presence in the Southwest. The desert sun climbs higher as reports flood in from across the region. Safe houses raided, banking networks frozen, transportation routes compromised. The cartel's infrastructure collapses with a speed that stuns even veteran agents. What they don't realize is that Sarah had spent years preparing for this moment, positioning every piece for maximum impact. "Ma'am," another agent approaches Diana, "we're getting requests for coordination from multiple agencies. DEA, ATF, even Interpol. This is becoming the largest coordinated anti-cartel operation in decade." The agent's voice carries both excitement and awe at the scale of what's unfolding. Sarah allows herself a small smile as she monitors El Coyote's approach to the border. The cartel enforcer still believes he's escaping with vital operational intelligence. Instead, he's about to deliver himself and evidence of Wilson's corruption directly into the hands of Mexican federal police, officers who've been waiting years to dismantle his organization. The baby kicks strongly, as if sensing its mother's satisfaction. Sarah places a protective hand on her belly, remembering James and how he would have appreciated the elegance of this operation. The cartel had thought her pregnancy made her vulnerable. Instead, it had given her the motivation to dismantle their entire organization more thoroughly than any direct confrontation could have achieved. Through her command center's displays, Sarah watches El Coyote's vehicle approach the final checkpoint before the Mexican border. The cartel enforcer's confidence is evident in his driving. No erratic movements, no signs of concern. He believes he's following emergency protocols established by Wilson, unaware that his escape route was compromised months ago. Target: Approaching checkpoint Charlie, a Mexican federal police commander reports through Sarah's secure channel. Teams in position. The transmission brings back memories of similar operations, times when Sarah had coordinated with Mexican law enforcement to dismantle cartel networks from within. The baby shifts as Sarah accesses her deepest files on El Coyote's organization. During her years undercover, she documented every aspect of his operation, not just the criminal enterprises, but the personal details that made his network vulnerable. Now, that knowledge becomes a weapon more effective than any tactical team. "Diana," Sarah calls, bringing up specialized surveillance feeds. "Watch this." Through her monitors, they observe El Coyote's vehicle slow at the checkpoint. The enforcer presents documents, perfect forgeries provided by Wilson's corrupt network. For a moment, it appears the border crossing will proceed smoothly. Then Sarah activates her final countermeasure. Every screen in the checkpoint station suddenly displays the same information. Evidence of El Coyote's involvement in James's murder, proof of Wilson's corruption, documentation of their entire criminal enterprise. The Mexican officers, already briefed and waiting, move with precise coordination. "Target is contained," the federal police commander confirms. "Evidence packages received and authenticated. Beginning phase 2. Sarah allows herself a moment of satisfaction as she watches El Coyote's arrest. The cartel's chief enforcer doesn't resist. The shock of seeing his entire operation exposed has left him stunned. Through her surveillance systems, Sarah monitors the cascading effects of El Coyote's capture. Across the Southwest, cartel operators receive news that their chief enforcer is in custody. The organization's carefully maintained discipline begins to crack as leaders realize the extent of their exposure. "Sarah," Diana's voice carries both admiration and concern, "this is bigger than Wilson's corruption. You're dismantling their entire command structure." She studies the tactical displays, watching multiple operations unfold simultaneously. How deep does this go? The baby kicks as Sarah brings up another set of files, evidence gathered during her last deep cover assignment. "Wilson wasn't just protecting their operations," she explains, showing Diana documentation of a more extensive conspiracy. "He was helping them eliminate rival cartels, using FBI resources to target their competition." Through her monitors, Sarah watches. Law enforcement teams across 3 states move against exposed cartel facilities. Each raid follows patterns she'd identified during her years building cases, patterns that now become fatal weaknesses in their security. "Ma'am," one of Diana's technical specialists calls out, "we're detecting massive data transfers from cartel servers. They're trying to purge their systems." But Sarah is already ahead of them, her countermeasures capturing and preserving every bite of evidence the organization tries to destroy. The morning heat intensifies as Sarah coordinates with her network of trusted contacts. Years of undercover work had taught her the value of building relationships, cultivating assets who could be activated at crucial moments. Now, those relationships help ensure that no piece of evidence is lost. No cartel operator escapes the net closing around them. "Diana," Sarah's voice remains professional despite the intensity of the operation. "I need teams at these locations." She displays a map showing dozens of points across the Southwest. They're Wilson's personal insurance, caches of evidence he kept to protect himself from the cartel. Now they'll help us expose everyone involved in his operation. The baby moves again as Sarah monitors El Coyote's interrogation through secure channels. The cartel enforcer, faced with overwhelming evidence of his crimes, begins to cooperate. Each revelation confirms what Sarah had suspected. The corruption went far beyond Wilson, reaching into multiple agencies and levels of government. Through her surveillance feeds, she watches cartel operators make increasingly desperate attempts to salvage their operation. But every escape route, every contingency plan, every emergency protocol had been compromised months ago. Sarah had spent her pregnancy preparing for this moment, turning her intimate knowledge of their organization into an inescapable trap. Sarah, Diana approaches, studying the tactical displays with growing understanding. You didn't just predict their attack, you needed it. This whole operation depended on them making a move against you. She glances at her former agents, pregnant belly with new respect. You used their perception of your vulnerability to draw them out. The desert sun climbs higher as Sarah activates another set of protocols. Across the region, carefully planted evidence begins surfacing in exactly the right places. Bank records, surveillance footage, intercepted communications, each piece fitting perfectly into a larger picture of corruption and criminal enterprise. The baby kicks strongly, as if appreciating its mother's strategy. Sarah had turned her pregnancy from a weakness into her greatest strength, using the months of perceived vulnerability to prepare an operation more devastating than any direct confrontation. The cartel thought they were eliminating a threat. Instead, they'd triggered their own destruction. Through her command center's displays, Sarah monitors multiple law enforcement operations unfolding simultaneously across the southwest. The morning, heat ripples across her surveillance feeds as tactical teams move against exposed cartel facilities with coordinated precision. El Coyote's capture has triggered exactly the chaos she'd anticipated, causing the organization's leadership to make critical errors. Multiple targets mobilizing, Diana reports, studying the tactical maps. They're abandoning safe houses, trying to move assets before we can seize them. But Sarah notes the confidence in her former handler's voice. Every evacuation route the cartel might use is already under surveillance. The baby shifts restlessly as Sarah brings up her deepest intelligence files. During her years undercover, she documented not just the cartel's criminal operations, but the complex relationships between its leaders. Now, those personal dynamics become vulnerabilities as trust breaks down within the organization. Diana, Sarah calls, highlighting specific surveillance feeds, watch their pattern. Through her monitors, they observe cartel operators making the same mistakes she'd seen during previous investigations, rushing to secure personal assets before protecting organizational infrastructure. They're revealing secondary locations we didn't even know about. The desert wind carries the sound of helicopters as more FBI teams arrive at Sarah's ranch. Her home has become the command center for what's rapidly evolving into the largest anti-cartel operation in recent history. Each piece of evidence recovered confirms the extent of Wilson's corruption while exposing new layers of the conspiracy. "Ma'am," one of Diana's technical specialists approaches, his expression showing professional awe, "we've decrypted more of Wilson's files. The network of corruption, it goes beyond anything we imagined. Federal judges, state officials, even military contacts." The specialist pauses, processing the implications. This isn't just going to take down the cartel, it's going to shake the entire system. Sarah's fingers move across specialized keyboards as she coordinates with her network of trusted contacts. Years of building cases against criminal organizations had taught her that timing is crucial. Evidence needs to surface in the right sequence, each revelation building on the last to create an unbreakable chain of prosecution. The baby kicks strongly as Sarah accesses another set of secure servers. El Coyote is talking, she informs Diana, bringing up live feeds from his interrogation. The evidence we planted in his vehicle, it's making him question everything Wilson told him. He's starting to realize they were manipulated from the beginning. Through her surveillance systems, Sarah watches cartel leaders react to the growing crisis. Their attempts to contain the situation follow predictable patterns. patterns she'd studied and documented during her deep cover assignments. Each decision they make leads them further into the trap she'd spent months preparing. Sarah, Diana's voice carries both admiration and concern. This is beyond anything we've seen before. You didn't just prepare for their attack, you engineered it. Everything that's happening, you planned it all during your pregnancy. She studies her former agent with new understanding. You used these months to set up the perfect operation. The morning sun intensifies as Sarah activates her final protocols. Across 3 states, evidence begins surfacing in precisely coordinated sequence. Banking records reveal money laundering operations. Surveillance footage exposes corrupt officials. Intercepted communications prove conspiracy at the highest levels. Each piece fits perfectly into a larger picture of systematic corruption. Multiple hits on cartel financial networks, a tactical specialist reports. Their entire banking infrastructure is exposed. Someone's dumping their complete transaction history to every major law enforcement agency. Sarah allows herself a small smile. Those records had been her insurance policy, evidence gathered during years of undercover work, preserved for exactly this moment. The baby moves again as Sarah monitors El Coyote's continuing interrogation. The cartel enforcers. Revelations confirm everything she'd suspected about Wilson's operation. The corrupt FBI official hadn't just protected their criminal enterprise, he'd helped them eliminate rivals, using federal resources to consolidate their power. Now, that same power structure becomes evidence of their crimes. Through her command. Centers displays, Sarah watches the cartel's regional operation collapse with stunning speed. Safe houses raided, assets seized, escape routes blocked. The organization's infrastructure crumbles as years of carefully gathered intelligence become active evidence. What they don't realize is that each attempt to salvage their operation only exposes more of their network to waiting law enforcement. Diana, Sarah calls, highlighting new data streams. They're starting to turn on each other. Through her monitors, they observe cartel leaders making desperate attempts to save themselves, offering evidence against former allies. It's a pattern Sarah had seen before during her undercover work. The moment when a criminal organization's discipline breaks down completely. The desert heat shimmers across Sarah's surveillance feeds as she coordinates the final phase of her operation. The cartel had thought they were dealing with a vulnerable pregnant widow. Instead, they'd triggered a response that would dismantle not just their organization, but an entire network of corruption that had protected them for years. Sarah watches the tactical displays as the morning operation transitions into its resolution phase. Through multiple surveillance feeds, she monitors law enforcement teams securing evidence across 3 states. El Coyote's interrogation continues to yield critical intelligence, each revelation confirming the depth of Wilson's corruption network. Final counts coming in, Diana reports, reviewing preliminary statistics. 17 major cartel facilities raided, 34 corrupt officials identified, over 200 million in assets frozen. She pauses, studying the data with professional appreciation. This is going to be the largest organized crime takedown in Southwest history. The baby shifts as Sarah begins archiving her surveillance data. Years of undercover work had taught her the importance of proper documentation. Every piece of evidence needs to be preserved and authenticated, creating an unbreakable chain of custody for the coming prosecutions. Ma'am, one of Diana's technical specialists approaches, we've completed the initial analysis of Wilson's communications. The network of corruption extends into at least 6 federal agencies. The specialist's voice carries a mix of dismay and determination. We're going to need a specialized task force just to process all the evidence. Through her command center's displays, Sarah monitors the continuing operations. Across the region, cartel leaders attempt to negotiate deals, offering evidence against former allies in exchange for leniency. It's a pattern she'd seen before during her undercover years. The moment when a criminal organization's hierarchy dissolves into desperate self-preservation. "Sarah," Diana's voice softens slightly, "we need to talk about your security. Once this evidence goes public, there will be a lot of powerful people looking for revenge." She glances meaningfully at Sarah's pregnant belly. "We need to get you into protective custody." But Sarah is already shaking her head, bringing up another set of monitors. "That won't be necessary," she explains, showing Diana live feeds from multiple surveillance networks. "Everything that's happening now, it's just the first phase. While they're focused on damage control, my deeper protocols are dismantling their entire support structure." The desert sun climbs higher as Sarah coordinates with her trusted contacts. Years of building cases against cartels had taught her to look beyond immediate tactical victories. The real success comes from ensuring that criminal organizations can't rebuild after major operations. Multiple agencies requesting coordination, a tactical specialist reports. DEA, ATF, Customs, everyone wants to be part of this operation. Sarah allows herself a moment of satisfaction. The cartels' attempt to capture her had united law enforcement agencies that normally struggled to cooperate. The baby kicks strongly as Sarah activates her final evidence protocols. Across secured networks, documentation begins flowing to carefully selected prosecutors and investigators. Each piece of evidence has been verified and authenticated, ready for immediate use in multiple jurisdictions. "Diana," Sarah calls, highlighting specific data streams, "I need these files prioritized." Through her monitors, they review evidence of judicial corruption, compromised political figures, law enforcement officials on cartel payrolls. These are the ones who could interfere with prosecution if we don't move quickly. Through her surveillance feeds, Sarah watches the last pieces of her operation fall into place. The cartel's attempt to eliminate a perceived threat had instead triggered their complete destruction. What they don't realize is that their attack was simply the catalyst Sarah needed to activate years of carefully gathered intelligence. "Ma'am," another agent approaches. "Mexican authorities report complete success at the border. El Coyote's entire escape network has been compromised." The agent's voice carries professional satisfaction. "They're calling this the end of an era for cartel operations in the Southwest." Sarah's fingers move across specialized keyboards as she begins shutting down temporary surveillance systems. Years of undercover work had taught her the importance of proper closure, ensuring that every piece of evidence is secured, every temporary access point closed, every asset properly protected. The baby moves again as Sarah reviews the operation's final statistics. Her months of pregnancy, which the cartel saw as a vulnerability, had provided the perfect cover for preparing this response. While they watched for signs of weakness, she had methodically positioned every piece for maximum impact. "Sarah," Diana studies her former agent with new understanding, "you didn't just survive their attack. You used it to achieve something we've been trying to do for decades." She gestures at the tactical displays, showing multiple operations concluding successfully. "You've changed the entire landscape of cartel operations in North America." Through her command center's displays, Sarah watches law enforcement teams complete their evidence collection. Each piece of documentation, every seized asset, every arrested operative becomes part of a larger picture, proof of corruption so extensive that no amount of political influence can contain it. The desert heat ripples across her surveillance, feeds as Sarah prepares for the operation's next phase. The immediate threat has been neutralized, but she knows from experience that the real work is just beginning. Prosecutions need to be coordinated, witnesses protected, evidence secured against both legal challenges and physical threats. The afternoon sun blankets Sarah's ranch as law enforcement teams process the morning's operation. Through her surveillance systems, she monitors the methodical collection of evidence, each piece carefully documented and secured. The transformation of her property from tactical battleground to primary crime scene unfolds with professional precision. Initial forensics. Completed in the main house, Diana reports, reviewing preliminary findings. We've documented all defensive measures, surveillance systems, and tactical positions. The level of preparation here... She pauses, shaking her head in admiration. This is going to rewrite our training protocols. The baby shifts as Sarah begins compiling her operational logs. Years of undercover work had taught her the importance of thorough documentation. Every decision, every countermeasure, every piece of intelligence needs to be properly recorded for the coming investigations. Technical teams have secured the command center, a specialist informs Diana. The sophistication of these systems, it's beyond anything we've seen before. She wasn't just gathering evidence, she was creating a complete intelligence infrastructure. The specialist's voice carries professional respect. This is going to be studied at Quantico for years. Through her monitors, Sarah watches evidence. Teams discover more of her hidden security measures. Each revelation adds to their understanding of just how thoroughly she'd prepared for this confrontation. What appears to be a simple ranch house had been transformed into one of the most sophisticated intelligence-gathering operations in FBI history. Sarah, Diana approaches, holding preliminary reports. We're finding things here that aren't in any FBI manual. These defensive protocols, the surveillance integration, the counterintelligence measures. You developed all of this during your pregnancy. The question carries both admiration and concern. I had time to think, Sarah responds, bringing up detailed schematics of her security systems. During my undercover years, I saw how cartels adapted to standard law enforcement tactics. I knew traditional security wouldn't be enough, especially after James. She pauses, one hand moving to her belly as the baby kicks. I needed something they wouldn't expect. The afternoon heat intensifies as more specialized teams arrive. Crime scene technicians document every aspect of the morning's operation, while intelligence analysts begin processing the vast amount of data collected. Sarah's ranch has become the epicenter of what's rapidly evolving into a landmark case. Ma'am, an evidence coordinator approaches Diana. We're going to need specialized transport for all this documentation. The amount of intelligence gathered here, it's unprecedented. The coordinator gestures at the growing collection of secured materials. This isn't just about today's operation. This is years of deep cover intelligence suddenly becoming active evidence. Sarah monitors the evidence collection through her remaining surveillance systems. Years of building cases against cartels had taught her the importance of proper procedure. Every piece of documentation needs to be handled according to strict protocols, ensuring its admissibility in multiple jurisdictions. Diana, Sarah calls. Highlighting specific data streams, these files need priority processing. Through her displays, they review evidence of corruption extending far beyond Wilson's immediate network. Some of these officials will try to interfere with the investigation as soon as they realize they're exposed. We need to move quickly. The baby moves again as Sarah begins transferring secured files to FBI servers. Her months of pregnancy had provided perfect cover for establishing this intelligence network. While the cartel watched for signs of vulnerability, she had methodically constructed an operation that would expose not just their criminal enterprise, but the entire system of corruption protecting it. Multiple agencies arriving, a tactical coordinator reports. DEA, ATF, even internal affairs. Everyone wants to be part of processing this scene. Sarah allows herself a moment of satisfaction. The cartel's attempt to eliminate her had instead created unprecedented cooperation between law enforcement agencies. Through her command center's displays, Sarah watches the careful documentation of her defensive measures. Each system reveals layers of preparation that stun even experienced agents. What they don't realize is that everything they're discovering was designed not just for protection, but for gathering evidence that would dismantle multiple criminal organizations. Sarah, Diana's voice carries new understanding. This goes beyond anything we've seen before. You didn't just defend against their attack, you used it to expose corruption we've suspected for years, but could never prove. She studies the tactical displays showing evidence collection across multiple locations. You've given us everything we need for a complete purge of cartel influence in federal law enforcement. The afternoon sun casts long shadows as Sarah begins shutting down temporary systems. Years of undercover work had taught her the importance of proper closure, ensuring that every piece of evidence is secured, every surveillance point documented, every tactical position properly recorded for future analysis. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across Sarah's ranch as the operation transitions into its strategic implementation phase. Through her surveillance systems, she monitors specialized teams establishing new security protocols, transforming her temporary defensive measures into permanent infrastructure for ongoing investigations. Perimeter security upgrades are in place, Diana reports, reviewing the latest installations. We've integrated your surveillance systems with FBI networks while maintaining independent backup protocols. She pauses, studying the enhanced security measures. This isn't just going to be a safe house, it's becoming our primary forward operating base against cartel operations. The baby shifts as Sarah coordinates with multiple agencies. Her years undercover had taught her that the aftermath of major operations is often more critical than the initial confrontation. Success depends on properly securing and utilizing the intelligence gathered, ensuring that criminal organizations can't rebuild their disrupted networks. Technical teams have completed the communications upgrade, a specialist informs them. Your command center is now directly linked to federal tactical networks while maintaining its independent capabilities. The specialist's voice carries professional appreciation. The redundancy in these systems, it's like you designed this place to become a permanent operations hub. Through her monitors, Sarah watches the implementation of enhanced security measures across her property. What began as personal defense has evolved into something more significant, a sophisticated base of operations for continuing the fight against cartel influence. Each upgrade builds on her existing systems, creating layers of protection and surveillance capability. Sarah, Diana approaches with new operational plans. We need to discuss the long-term strategy. What you've built here, it's exactly what we've needed for regional operations, but maintaining this level of security while you're... She glances meaningfully at Sarah's pregnant belly. That's why I designed everything to be automated, Sarah responds, bringing up detailed system schematics. During my undercover years, I learned that the most effective operations aren't about individual agents. They're about creating sustainable infrastructure. She demonstrates how her security systems can operate with minimal direct oversight, allowing her to focus on her approaching motherhood while maintaining operational effectiveness. The evening approaches as more specialized equipment arrives. Intelligence analysts set up additional workstations, while tactical teams establish secure storage for sensitive materials. Sarah's ranch is being transformed into a fortified command center, designed to coordinate ongoing operations against cartel networks. Ma'am, A logistics coordinator approaches Diana. We've completed the initial supply inventory. The stockpiles here, medical supplies, tactical gear, emergency provisions, it's beyond standard safe house protocols. The coordinator reviews his notes with growing respect. She didn't just prepare for defense, she created a fully sustainable operational base. Sarah monitors the implementation through her surveillance network. Years of building cases against cartels had taught her the importance of proper infrastructure. Every system needs redundancy. Every protocol needs backup plans. Every security measure needs multiple layers of protection. "Diana!" Sarah calls, highlighting specific security upgrades. These defensive positions need to be maintained. Through her displays, they review the integrated security measures that had proved so effective during the morning's confrontation. The cartel will analyze everything that happened here. We need to be ready for more sophisticated attacks. The baby moves again as Sarah begins integrating new tactical systems. Her pregnancy had given her time to plan not just immediate defense, but long-term security. While others might have seen these months as a period of vulnerability, she had used them to create something unprecedented, a permanently secured operations center disguised as a private residence. Multiple agencies requesting permanent liaison positions, a coordination specialist reports. DEA, ATF, even international law enforcement want to establish presence here. Sarah allows herself a moment of satisfaction. The cartel's attempt to eliminate her had instead created a unified command structure for ongoing operations against organized crime. Through her command center's displays, Sarah watches the careful integration of new security measures. Each system adds another layer of protection while expanding surveillance capabilities. What began as personal defense has evolved into a sophisticated operations center capable of coordinating multi-agency responses to cartel activities. Sarah, Diana's voice carries both admiration and concern. This goes beyond anything we've established before. You're not just creating a secure location, you're building a permanent command center for continued operations. She studies the expanding security infrastructure, but the cartels will figure out what this place is becoming. They'll try to shut it down. As night approaches, Sarah begins testing the enhanced systems. Years of undercover work had taught her that proper implementation is crucial. Every upgrade needs thorough verification. Every new protocol needs rigorous testing. Every security measure needs to be proven effective before being fully integrated. Night settles over Sarah's ranch as the operational transformation enters its community integration phase. Through sophisticated surveillance systems, she monitors multiple teams establishing connections with local law enforcement, ranchers, and civilian organizations, creating layers of security that extend far beyond her property lines. Community liaison protocols activated, Diana reports, reviewing the expanding network. Local police departments, sheriff's offices, even private security firms are being integrated into the surveillance grid. She studies the growing web of connections with professional appreciation. You're not just building a fortress, you're creating a protected community. The baby shifts as Sarah coordinates the delicate process of civilian integration. Her years undercover had taught her that the most effective security isn't about walls and weapons. It's about creating networks of trusted observers, each contributing to a larger defensive system. Civilian training programs are ready for implementation, a specialist informs them. We've adapted your protocols for community-level security awareness while maintaining operational security. The specialist's voice carries measured respect. The way you've designed this, it makes every participant an asset without compromising sensitive information. Through her monitors, Sarah watches the careful expansion of her security network. Local ranchers receive specialized training in observation techniques, while business owners learn to recognize suspicious patterns. Each participant becomes part of a sophisticated early warning system, though few understand the full scope of their contribution. Sarah, Diana approaches with updated community engagement plans. This level of civilian integration, it's unprecedented. You're not just protecting yourself, you're creating a model for regional security. She reviews the carefully structured training programs. But managing this many civilian participants while maintaining operational security. And that's why everything is compartmentalized, Sarah responds, bringing up detailed network diagrams. During my undercover work, I learned that effective community defense depends on everyone knowing exactly what they need to know. Nothing more, nothing less. She demonstrates how each group receives specific training tailored to their role, creating a coordinated defense network without exposing sensitive operational details. The night deepens as more community representatives arrive for orientation. Local law enforcement officers learn advanced surveillance techniques while civilian volunteers receive basic security awareness training. Sarah's command center coordinates it all, ensuring that each piece fits perfectly into the larger defensive structure. Ma'am, a training coordinator approaches Diana. The response from local communities has exceeded all projections. These people, they're not just participating in security programs, they're becoming active partners in regional defense. The coordinator reviews participation statistics with growing optimism. We're seeing unprecedented levels of cooperation between civilian and law enforcement agencies. Sarah monitors the integration process through her surveillance network. Years of building cases against cartels had taught her that sustainable security requires community buy-in. Every participant needs to understand their role. Every organization needs clear protocols. Every communication channel needs proper security measures. Diana, Sarah calls, highlighting specific training modules. These civilian protocols need careful monitoring. And through her displays, they review the tiered system of community participation. We're building something that will last beyond any single operation. It needs to be sustainable long-term. The baby moves again as Sarah oversees the implementation of community alert systems. Her pregnancy had given her time to design not just immediate security measures, but a comprehensive approach to regional defense. While others might have focused solely on personal protection, she had created a model for community-wide security that could be replicated across multiple jurisdictions. Multiple agencies requesting access to training protocols, a coordination, specialist reports. State and federal law enforcement want to implement similar community integration programs in other regions. Sarah allows herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The cartel's attempt to eliminate her had instead sparked a revolution in community-based security approaches. Through her command center's displays, Sarah watches the careful expansion of civilian participation. Each community group receives specific training. Each organization learns particular protocols. Each participant understands exactly what to watch for and how to report it. What began as personal defense has evolved into a sophisticated model for regional security cooperation. Sarah, Diana's voice carries professional admiration. This goes beyond standard community policing. You're creating a new paradigm for regional security, one that makes every participant an active contributor while maintaining strict operational security. She studies the growing network of civilian participants. But the cartels will eventually realize what you're building. They'll try to infiltrate these community programs. As midnight approaches, Sarah begins reviewing the first day's training results. Years of undercover work had taught her that proper implementation requires constant assessment. Every protocol needs regular evaluation. Every training program needs careful monitoring. Every security measure needs ongoing verification of effectiveness. The midnight hours bring a new phase of system evolution as Sarah monitors the expanding security network. Through advanced displays, she watches the integration of sophisticated analytical tools and predictive algorithms, taking the operation far beyond standard defensive measures into next-generation threat prevention. Advanced pattern recognition. Systems are online, Diana reports, studying the complex data flows. Your predictive models are already identifying potential cartel activities we hadn't detected through conventional surveillance. She examines the analytical outputs with growing appreciation. This isn't just security, it's preventive intelligence gathering on an unprecedented scale. The baby shifts as Sarah fine-tunes the new systems. Her undercover experience had taught her that effective security requires more than just observation. It needs the ability to anticipate and prevent threats before they materialize. Each new algorithm adds another layer of predictive capability to the network. Neural network integration is complete, a technical specialist announces. The system is correlating data from civilian reports, law enforcement channels, and surveillance feeds in real time. The specialist pauses, studying the complex interactions. It's already identifying patterns that our best analysts missed. Through her monitors, Sarah watches the AI-enhanced security systems process vast amounts of data. Financial transactions, travel patterns, communication networks. Everything feeds into sophisticated models that can identify potential threats while they're still in the planning stages. It's a level of preventive security that transforms the entire approach to cartel operations. Sarah, Diana approaches with preliminary analysis reports. These predictive capabilities, they're beyond anything currently deployed by federal agencies. You've created something that could revolutionize how we approach organized crime. She reviews the early results with measured amazement. But managing this level of technological sophistication while maintaining operational security, that's why everything is compartmentalized, Sarah explains, bringing up system architecture diagrams. During my undercover years, I learned that the most sophisticated technology is useless without proper controls. She demonstrates how each analytical layer operates independently while contributing to the larger intelligence picture. The early morning hours see the arrival of more specialized equipment. Quantum encryption systems enhance communication security, while advanced processing nodes expand analytical capabilities. Sarah's command center evolves into something that pushes the boundaries of current technology while maintaining absolute operational security. Ma'am, a systems analyst approaches Diana. The integration of civilian data streams is yielding unexpected benefits. The AI is identifying potential cartel activities through pattern analysis of seemingly unrelated community reports. The analyst reviews complex data visualizations. It's like having thousands of trained observers feeding a single analytical brain. Sarah monitors the system evolution through multiple interfaces. Years of building cases against cartels had taught her that technology alone isn't enough. It needs to be integrated with human intelligence in ways that amplify both. Every algorithm needs careful calibration. Every analytical model needs regular adjustment. Every prediction needs human verification. Diana, Sarah calls, highlighting specific system outputs. These predictive models need constant refinement. Through her displays, they review the complex interplay of artificial and human intelligence. We're creating something that will transform how we fight organized crime, but it needs proper oversight. The baby moves again as Sarah implements additional security protocols. Her pregnancy had provided time to design not just advanced technology, but comprehensive systems for its proper use. While others might have focused on individual capabilities, she had created an integrated approach that combines cutting-edge technology with experienced human judgment. Multiple agencies requesting system access, a coordination specialist reports. Federal and international law enforcement want to implement similar predictive capabilities in their regions. Sarah allows herself a moment of satisfaction. The cartel's attempt to eliminate her had instead accelerated the development of next-generation law enforcement tools. Through her command center's displays, Sarah watches the careful expansion of analytical capabilities. Each new system adds another layer of predictive power while maintaining strict security protocols. What began as personal defense has evolved into a sophisticated intelligence platform that could transform the fight against organized crime. Sarah, Diana's voice carries both admiration and concern. This goes beyond anything currently deployed. In law enforcement, you're not just creating enhanced security, you're developing capabilities that could change the entire landscape of criminal investigation. She studies the evolving systems. But this level of technological sophistication makes us a prime target for cyber attacks. The pre-dawn hours see Sarah implementing additional protective measures. Years of undercover work had taught her that advanced capabilities require advanced protection. Every system needs multiple security layers. Every capability needs careful access controls. Every technological advantage needs proper safeguarding against potential compromise. Dawn breaks over Sarah's transformed ranch as the operation enters its final defensive phase. Through integrated command systems, she monitors the culmination of months of preparation, the emergence of a complete security architecture that combines advanced technology, community engagement, and tactical capabilities into something entirely new. All systems achieving full integration, Diana reports, reviewing holistic performance metrics, civilian networks, predictive analytics, tactical response teams. Everything's operating as a single coordinated entity. She studies the comprehensive security overview with professional awe. This isn't just an evolution in protection, it's a revolution in regional defense. The baby shifts as Sarah oversees the final system alignments. Her years undercover had taught her that true security comes from perfect integration of all available resources. Each component needs to function both independently and as part of the larger whole, creating layers of protection that become virtually impenetrable. Complete spectrum coverage achieved, a systems specialist announces. From ground-level community observation to satellite surveillance, we've got seamless monitoring capabilities. The specialist's voice carries quiet pride. The predictive models are already preventing potential threats before they fully materialize. Through her monitors, Sarah watches the unified system in action. Civilian reports trigger automated analysis, which feeds tactical response planning, which informs community security measures. A perfect cycle of prevention, detection, and response. It's a level of coordination that transforms the entire concept of regional security. Sarah, Diana approaches with final implementation reports. What you've created here goes beyond anything we've ever attempted. This isn't just a secure facility or an intelligence center. It's a new paradigm for comprehensive regional defense. She reviews the integrated capabilities with growing appreciation, but maintaining this level of coordination is exactly what the system was designed for. Sarah completes the thought, bringing up master control interfaces. During my undercover work, I learned that sustainable security requires perfect balance between automated systems and human oversight. She demonstrates how the entire network can operate smoothly with minimal direct intervention. The morning light illuminates the arrival of final equipment installations. Quantum encrypted communication nodes link with advanced sensor networks, while AI-driven analysis platforms process vast amounts of real-time data. Sarah's command center has become the heart of something unprecedented in law enforcement history. Ma'am, a coordination specialist approaches Diana. We're seeing remarkable results from the integrated operations. Cartel activities are being disrupted before they begin. Trafficking routes are being identified and blocked. Corruption networks are being exposed automatically. The specialist reviews performance data. It's like having a crystal ball for criminal activities. Sarah monitors the unified operations through comprehensive displays. Years of building cases against cartels had taught her that effective security requires more than just good tools. It needs perfect synchronization of all available resources. Every component must work flawlessly with every other, creating a security web that becomes virtually impossible to penetrate. Diana, Sarah calls, highlighting system performance metrics. These integration protocols need constant validation. Through her displays, they review the complex interactions between different security layers. We're not just protecting a location, we're securing an entire region. The baby moves again as Sarah implements final control protocols. Her pregnancy had provided the opportunity to design something far beyond traditional security measures, a comprehensive approach that transforms regional defense while remaining surprisingly efficient to operate. Multiple agencies reporting unprecedented success rates, an analysis coordinator reports. Criminal organizations are finding it impossible to maintain operations within the protected zone. They can't move, communicate, or operate without being detected and disrupted. Through her command center's displays, Sarah watches the complete security architecture in action. Each layer supports and enhances the others, creating a defensive system that becomes stronger and more effective over time. What began as personal protection has evolved into a model for regional security that could be replicated worldwide. Sarah, Diana's voice carries deep professional respect. You've done more than create a security system. You've developed a completely new approach to regional defense, one that makes traditional cartel operations virtually impossible. She studies the integrated operations. This changes everything about how we fight organized crime. The morning progresses as Sarah oversees final system optimizations. Years of undercover work had taught her that perfect security requires constant refinement. Every component needs regular adjustment. Every protocol needs ongoing improvement. Every capability needs continuous enhancement to stay ahead of evolving threats. The mid-morning sun beats down on Sarah's ranch as her deepest contingency plans spring into action. Through encrypted channels, she watches a network of sleeper agents, assets she'd cultivated during her undercover years, begin systematically dismantling what remains of the cartel's regional infrastructure. Each operative executes precise tasks, unaware of their role in the larger operation, but contributing to the organization's complete collapse. Ma'am, Diana's voice carries urgency as she studies incoming reports. We're getting updates from across 3 states, bank accounts frozen, safe houses compromised, transportation networks exposed. Someone's hitting them everywhere at once. She glances at Sarah, understanding dawning in her eyes. This isn't just about today's operation, is it? Sarah's fingers move across specialized keyboards, coordinating the complex dance of intelligence and action. During my pregnancy, I had time to activate old resources, she explains, bringing up secure communications channels. People who owed favors, contacts who'd been waiting for the right moment. The cartel's attack gave us the perfect opportunity. The baby kicks as she monitors multiple operations unfolding simultaneously. Through her surveillance feeds, she watches years of careful preparation bear fruit. Former cartel members turned informants expose hidden assets. Corrupt officials find their secret accounts emptied. Transportation routes that took decades to Established become compromised within hours. Sarah, Diana approaches with fresh intelligence reports. The scale of this, it's beyond anything we've seen before. You haven't just prepared defensive measures. You've created a complete shadow network designed to tear their organization apart from the inside. She studies the tactical displays with growing amazement. How long have you been planning this? Since I discovered I was pregnant, Sarah responds, activating another set of protocols. I knew they'd eventually find me. James's death proved how far their influence reached. I needed something that would do more than just protect us, something that would make sure they could never threaten my child's future. Through her command center's displays, she watches El Coyote's interrogation continue at the border. The cartel enforcer's revelations confirm everything she'd suspected about their operation's vulnerabilities. Each piece of information he provides triggers new cascades of intelligence gathering and asset seizure. Multiple high-level cartel figures attempting emergency evacuations, a tactical specialist reports. Private airfields across the region reporting sudden increase in flight plan submissions. Sarah allows herself a grim smile. During her undercover work, she'd mapped every escape route, every contingency plan, every bolt hole their leadership might use. The baby shifts as she implements the next phase of her operation. Her pregnancy, which the cartel saw as weakness, had provided perfect cover for establishing this network. While they watched for signs of vulnerability, she had methodically positioned assets and resources that would ensure their complete destruction. Diana, Sarah calls, highlighting specific data streams. These locations need immediate attention. Through her monitors, they review a series of seemingly unrelated businesses, shipping companies, real estate offices, private security firms. Each one plays a crucial role in their money laundering operation. When they fall, the entire financial network collapses. Years of building cases against cartels had taught Sarah that criminal organizations can survive the loss of personnel, even leadership. But attacking their financial infrastructure, disrupting their ability to move and clean money, that's what truly destroys them. Her fingers fly across specialized interfaces, coordinating simultaneous raids across multiple jurisdictions. Ma'am, another specialist approaches with urgency. We're detecting massive data transfers from cartel servers. They're trying to purge their systems. But Sarah had anticipated this too. Hidden protocols embedded in their networks during her undercover years activate, capturing and preserving every byte of evidence they attempt to destroy. Through her surveillance feeds, she watches the cartel's regional operation crumble with stunning speed. Safe houses raided, assets seized, escape routes blocked. The organization's infrastructure collapses as years of carefully gathered intelligence become active evidence. What they don't realize is that each attempt to salvage their operation only exposes more of their network to waiting law enforcement. It's not just about taking them down, Sarah explains to Diana, watching the operation unfold. It's about making sure they can't rebuild. Every contact, every resource, every method they've used to maintain power, it all gets exposed and neutralized simultaneously. Her voice carries the weight of years of planning, of countless hours spent preparing for exactly this moment. The baby kicks strongly as Sarah implements the final phases of her network activation. Her hand moves to her belly, feeling the life she's fighting to protect. The cartel thought pregnancy had made her vulnerable. Instead, it had given her the motivation and time to create something far more dangerous than any tactical team, a complete system for dismantling criminal empires from within. As noon approaches, Sarah's surveillance network detects a desperate last-ditch effort from the cartel's leadership. Through encrypted channels, she intercepts orders being sent to sleeper cells across 3 states. A final massive counterattack aimed at overwhelming her defenses through sheer force. But even this desperate move plays directly into her carefully laid plans, multiple hostile elements mobilizing, Diana reports, studying tactical displays with growing concern. They're activating every resource they have left, at least 30 heavily armed teams converging on different locations. She glances at Sarah's pregnant belly, worry evident in her expression. They're going to hit everything at once, trying to overwhelm our response capability. Sarah's fingers move across specialized keyboards with practiced precision, implementing protocols she designed specifically for this scenario. During my undercover years, she explains, bringing up detailed tactical maps, I learned that cartels are most vulnerable when they're desperate. They abandon caution, expose resources they'd normally keep hidden. That's when you can really hurt them. The baby kicks as she activates her deepest countermeasures. Through her command center's displays, she watches the cartel's forces mobilize, each movement revealing more of their hidden infrastructure. Every team they deploy, every safe house they activate, every communication channel they use, all of it feeds intelligence directly into her systems. Sarah, Diana approaches with fresh tactical assessments. They're not just coming after the ranch anymore. They're targeting every person and location connected to this morning's operation. Local law enforcement, federal facilities, even civilian support infrastructure. She reviews threat assessments with professional concern. This is an all-out offensive. Exactly what we wanted, Sarah responds, implementing the next phase of her defense. They think they're launching a massive coordinated attack. Instead, they're walking into simultaneous traps across the entire region. Her voice carries calm certainty as she watches years of preparation come to fruition. Through her surveillance feeds, she observes cartel teams moving into position, their tactical formations perfect but predictable. Each group follows standard, operating procedures she'd helped develop during her undercover work. Now, that same standardization becomes their weakness, making their movements transparent to her defense network. Multiple breach attempts detected, a tactical specialist reports. They're hitting security systems at every major facility involved in today's operation. But Sarah's preparations had anticipated this too. Hidden protocols activate, turning their cyber attacks into intelligence-gathering opportunities. Every system they probe reveals more about their own infrastructure. The baby shifts as Sarah coordinates responses across multiple jurisdictions. Her pregnancy had given her time to plan for every contingency, to prepare responses to even the most desperate counterattacks. While the cartel spent months watching for signs of weakness, she had methodically positioned assets and resources for exactly this moment. Diana, Sarah calls, highlighting specific tactical displays. Watch their pattern. Through her monitors, they observe the cartel's forces walking into carefully prepared kill zones. Every route they're using, every position they're taking, we mapped it all out months ago. Their own tactical doctrine is working against them. Years of building cases against cartels had taught Sarah that criminal organizations are most dangerous when cornered, but also most predictable. Her fingers move across specialized interfaces, coordinating responses that turn their own strategies against them. Each aggressive move they make exposes more of their network to waiting law enforcement teams. Ma'am, another specialist approaches. Urgently, they're attempting to access emergency resources, foreign accounts, hidden arsenals, deep cover operatives. But these too had been compromised months ago. Sarah's network had identified and tagged every contingency asset, ensuring that their desperate grasp for resources would only accelerate their collapse. Through her command center's displays, she watches the cartel's counterattack transform into a systematic surrender. Team after team finds their carefully planned assaults turned into carefully planned ambushes. Safe houses prove compromised. Escape routes lead to waiting tactical teams. Secure communications reveal their locations to law enforcement. It's Not just about stopping their attack, Sarah explains to Diana, monitoring multiple operations simultaneously. It's about using their desperation to expose everything they have left, every resource they commit, every asset they reveal. It all becomes evidence we can use to ensure they never recover from this. The baby kicks strongly as Sarah implements the final phase of her countermeasures. Her hand moves to her belly, revealing the life that had inspired such meticulous preparation. The cartel thought pregnancy had made her vulnerable. Instead, it had motivated her to create a defense system that could turn their own desperate aggression into the instrument of their destruction. Through her surveillance feeds, she watches their offensive crumble into chaos. Years of experience in dismantling criminal organizations had taught her that the most effective victories come not from matching force with force, but from turning an enemy's strength into weakness. Now, that lesson plays out across 3 states as the cartel's massive counterattack becomes the final blow to their own organization. The afternoon sun blazes overhead as Sarah's command center processes the aftermath of the cartel's failed counterattack. Through multiple surveillance feeds, she watches law enforcement teams secure prisoners and gather evidence across 3 states. What began as a desperate assault by the cartel has transformed into the largest coordinated takedown of organized crime in Southwest history. Final numbers coming in, Diana reports, reviewing operation statistics. 78 high-level cartel operatives in custody, 32 corrupt officials identified, over 300 million in assets frozen. She pauses, studying the data with professional appreciation. And we're still finding new evidence in every location they tried to attack. Sarah's fingers move across specialized interfaces, coordinating the massive evidence-gathering operation. Her years undercover had taught her that securing a victory is just as crucial as achieving it. Every piece of intelligence needs proper documentation. Every arrest requires perfect procedural compliance. Every seized asset must have an unbreakable chain of custody. The baby kicks as she monitors multiple jurisdictions processing prisoners. Through her command center's displays, she watches cartel members beginning to turn on each other, offering evidence against former allies in exchange for leniency. It's a pattern she'd seen before during her FBI years, the moment when a criminal organization's loyalty dissolves into desperate self-preservation. Sarah, Diana approaches with fresh intelligence summaries. El Coyote's interrogation is yielding incredible results. He's not just giving us current operations, he's exposing decades of cartel infrastructure. Hidden accounts, political connections, corruption networks we never knew existed. She studies her former agent with new understanding. You knew he'd break once he saw the organization collapsing. People like El Coyote value power above everything, Sarah explains, bringing up detailed evidence logs. During my undercover work, I learned that cartel enforcers are loyal only as long as they believe their organization is strong. Show them real weakness, and they'll do anything to save themselves. Through her surveillance systems, she observes teams processing the captured cartel members who had attempted to breach her ranch. Each prisoner provides another piece of evidence, another connection to expose, another layer of criminal enterprise to dismantle. The attack they'd launched, hoping to silence her instead, gives prosecutors everything needed for generations of convictions. A federal prosecutor approaches Diana. We're going to need specialized task forces just to process all this evidence. The scope of corruption being exposed, it goes beyond anything we've seen before. The prosecutor's voice carries both excitement and concern. This isn't just going to take down a cartel, it's going to shake entire institutions. The baby moves again as Sarah implements evidence preservation protocols. Her pregnancy had given her time to prepare not just for combat, but for the crucial aftermath. While the cartel watched for physical weakness, she had methodically constructed an operation that would ensure every piece of evidence became part of an unbreakable prosecution. Diana, Sarah calls, highlighting specific data streams, these files need priority processing. Through her monitors, they review evidence of corruption extending far beyond Wilson's immediate network. Some of these officials will try to use their influence to obstruct justice. We need to move quickly. Years of building cases against criminal organizations had taught Sarah that the most dangerous phase of any operation comes after the initial victory. Her fingers move across specialized keyboards, coordinating with prosecutors across multiple jurisdictions. Every piece of evidence needs proper handling. Every witness requires protection. Every legal procedure must be perfectly followed. Multiple agencies requesting participation, a coordination specialist reports. DEA, ATF, even international. Law enforcement want to be part of processing these cases. Sarah allows herself a moment of satisfaction. The cartel's attempt to eliminate her had instead created unprecedented cooperation between law enforcement agencies. Through her command center's displays, she watches the careful documentation of seized assets and intelligence. Each location the cartel tried to defend becomes a crime scene, yielding evidence that connects to other investigations, other organizations, other criminal enterprises. What began as a defensive operation has evolved into something that could reshape the entire landscape of law enforcement. Sarah, Diana's voice carries both admiration and concern. This goes beyond anything we've seen before. You haven't just stopped their attack. You've given us everything needed to dismantle multiple criminal empires. She studies the expanding evidence collection, but prosecuting cases this big against people this powerful. It's exactly what all this preparation was for, Sarah completes the thought, bringing up another set of secured files. During my undercover years, I learned that taking down criminal organizations isn't just about arrests and seizures. It's about building cases so strong that no amount of money or influence can stop the prosecution. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows as Sarah reviews preliminary prosecution strategies. Through her surveillance feeds, she monitors multiple teams, cataloging evidence and securing testimony. The cartel's desperate counterattack had played perfectly into her plans, transforming a defensive operation into the foundation for years of criminal prosecution. Evening settles over Sarah's ranch as the massive operation transitions into its final phase. Through her command center's displays, she watches teams securing the last pieces of evidence while establishing permanent security protocols. What began as a desperate defense of her home has evolved into something that will transform the fight against organized crime for generations to come. All primary objectives achieved, Diana reports, reviewing final operation statistics. Every cartel team neutralized, all evidence secured, witness protection protocols activated. She pauses, studying the tactical displays with quiet amazement. In one day, we've accomplished what multiple agencies couldn't do in decades. Sarah's fingers move across specialized interfaces one last time, implementing permanent security measures. Her years undercover had taught her that true victory isn't just about winning battles. It's about ensuring the enemy can never rebuild. Every system she'd created, every protocol she'd designed, would continue protecting the region long after today's operation. The baby kicks strongly as she monitors the final prisoner transfers. Through her surveillance feeds, she watches cartel members being processed into federal custody, their faces showing the shock of people who still can't believe how completely their organization collapsed. None of them understand that their attack on a pregnant widow had triggered an operation, years in the making. Sarah, Diana approaches with final intelligence summaries. What you've built here, it's going to change everything. The evidence we've gathered, the networks we've exposed, the corruption we've documented, it's going to take years just to process all the implications. She studies her former agent thoughtfully. This wasn't just about revenge for James, was it? No, Sarah responds, bringing up comprehensive tactical displays. During my pregnancy, I had time to think about the future, not just for my child, but for every family threatened by cartel violence. James died trying to protect people. I needed to make sure his sacrifice meant something. Through her command center's systems, she observes teams implementing permanent security infrastructure across the region. Each location that had been part of today's battle becomes an integrated node in a sophisticated defense network. The cartel had tried to eliminate a threat. Instead, they'd helped create an impenetrable barrier against organized crime. "Ma'am," a senior FBI official approaches Diana. Washington is stunned by the scope of what's been accomplished here. They're talking about using this as a model for operations across the country. The official's voice carries clear admiration. "You haven't just shut down a cartel, you've created a whole new paradigm for fighting organized crime." The baby moves again as Sarah begins transferring operational control to permanent task forces. Her pregnancy, which the cartel saw as weakness, had given her the perfect cover to develop something unprecedented, a comprehensive system for not just fighting criminal organizations, but preventing them from establishing operations in the first place. "Diana," Sarah calls, highlighting specific security protocols. "These defensive measures need to be maintained." Through her monitors, they review the sophisticated networks that had proven so effective during today's battle. What we've built here isn't just about winning one fight, it's about protecting this region permanently. Years of working undercover had taught Sarah that the most effective victories don't just solve immediate problems, they prevent future threats. Her fingers move across specialized keyboards, coordinating the transition from temporary battle stations to permanent security infrastructure. Every system gets upgraded, every protocol gets enhanced, every capability gets integrated into lasting defensive networks. Multiple agencies committing permanent resources, a coordination specialist. Reports. State and federal law enforcement want to maintain the security infrastructure we've established. Sarah allows herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The cartel's attack had created something they never imagined, a unified, permanent defense against organized crime. Through her command center's displays, she watches the sun setting on a transformed landscape. Each location that saw combat during the day now houses sophisticated security measures. Every route the cartel tried to use becomes part of an early warning system. All their former safe houses transform into monitoring stations for law enforcement. "Sarah," Diana's voice softens slightly, "you could have left after James died. Gone somewhere safe to have your baby. Instead, you stayed and built something incredible." She gestures at the tactical displays, showing the day's achievements. "How did you know it would work?" "Because I had something worth fighting for," Sarah responds, her hand moving to her belly as the baby kicks again. "During my undercover years, I learned that the most dangerous opponent isn't the one with the most weapons or the most soldiers. It's the one with the most to lose." The night deepens as Sarah prepares to transfer command to permanent security teams. Through her surveillance feeds, she monitors the final phases of an operation that had begun months ago, when a newly widowed agent discovered she was pregnant and decided to use her vulnerability as strength. The cartel had seen an easy target. Instead, they'd found something far more dangerous, a mother determined to create a safer world for her child. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.